I feel like I have a lot of friends in the audience, and so I'm really grateful to all my friends and the lovely people I know in the literary community and the Winchester community and so forth for coming out tonight. So I just wanted to say thank you. It's really special to be in this space. I have lived in town for 26 years, and it's always been a little bit of a dream to have an event at this bookstore. And it's just thank you so much to Lauren and Jillian for so Bookends has been in town, as many of you know, for a really, really long time. You guys probably know the exact.
84.
Since 1984.
Yeah.
So, and these two women took it over 6 months ago.
Yeah, November 1st.
Yeah.
We're third owners.
So it's exciting. It's exciting to see independent bookstores, just getting new ownership and all the revitalization that's going on in just the larger independent bookstore community too. It's exciting. But we are here to talk about Pangyris, which is this lovely literary magazine I got involved with about 5 years ago. Greg Harris, who's working very diligently to get us on over here, is the editor of this magazine, and he founded this magazine in 2014. I like the story that he tells about feeling like this was an impossible dream of his, that he was never, he doesn't consider himself a terribly organized person, so he thought, how could I ever...
It's not showing right now.
How could I ever run a literary magazine? But here we are, and it's almost 10 years later, and this is our 10th anthology, 40 authors in this book, and we publish many, many more than that number online. So it's been a lot of fun to be connected to this magazine. I don't know how I ended up as managing editor, but I really enjoy it, and I enjoy connecting with authors. I enjoy connecting with all of these great people who I get to work with. I wanted to do a special shout out to my college friend, Miranda Loud, who is sitting here in the white sweater, and she is the artist who did the it's the first time in the history of the journal that we've had commissioned art on our cover, and it just really elevates the look, Miranda, and I just want to say thank you again.
It's a thrill for me to be part of this. I've been reading it, and very excited to hear some of the authors read today.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, welcome everyone who's here again, and live stream now finally. Sorry for the technical difficulties. So I'm not going to repeat what Amanda said about the magazine. It's just to say I truly am not an organized person who manages. Amanda stepping in as managing editor, even though she may have a little bit of an existential, like, why am I managing editor? The answer is so obvious to all of us who work at the journal, that she keeps everything running and manages the relationships and does it with incredible flair. It's just amazing, and thank you. So I would love to get to the authors as soon as possible. I was a little distracted. So do we say anything about the Where We Dwell theme already?
No, we didn't. That would be a great thing to do.
So this volume of the journal, like everything about the journal, sort of started off as a notion of, hey, wouldn't this be cool? Let's see what happens. This is sort of where we start off, and the idea of literary community that's underneath the journal was that, a journal. There's a space that we felt, many of us felt, I think, was missing for discovering new writers, for writing that was engaged, for a sense of literary community. And so sure enough, literary community showed up because there was this need. For this particular edition, we were in the middle of the pandemic. In fact, I remember distinctly sitting many feet away from Amanda on your front porch.
Really?
It was one of those days, right? We were like, okay, let's plan together in person, but cautiously. And we were talking about how much we were spending time in our dwelling places and also in nature. That this was a time, you'll remember it well, when taking walks in the neighborhood felt like an adventure, and every local park had to be ransacked for every possible new angle you could find on it, because what else are you going to do? And why don't we make the next issue about where we dwell, and that'll be a theme, and hopefully it'll be expansive and go inward and do all the good things that writing can do. And so we were like, here's an idea. And then our process with the journal is we put out an idea like that, and writers submit. They send stuff inspired by a theme, or just because that's what they happen to write, or the hope of getting published, or because they know us. And stuff came in that we were thrilled by. And so at the point where we had enough for a volume, we were like, okay, here we go. It's time to produce it. And so here we are. If you don't have a copy, they will sell them afterwards. Really glad you're all here and that you're here in the live stream.
I would say if you know anybody who's trying to live stream, let them know there's a new link because there's still a lot of people on the old link.
Oh yeah,
They've been sharing it they've been sharing links in the comments, but
oh good. The new link is
Working on it.
so they'll gradually move over. Everyone except my mom, who will let me hear about it afterwards. Okay, so okay, hi mom, if you're there. Okay. All that said, actually for our first reader, we actually have an introducer of the reader, who's Amy Card, who edits our Generations column, which is about family life and generations. Was our associate nonfiction editor, I believe, when this essay came in. So she's the perfect person to introduce it. Amy, thank you so much.
So I'm introducing Diana Wren. So this was one of my favorite pieces that came out, I just have to say. And Where We Dwell is basically in her backyard, pretty much on this one. So it's a real treat. You're going to love it. So Diana Wren is the author of a middle grade eco mystery, Trouble at Turtle Pond, which late breaking news has just been longlisted for the Mass Book Awards. And 3 young adult novels, Tokyo Heist, Latitude Zero, and Blue Voyage. Diana's essays have appeared in Cognoscenti, Flyaway Journal of Writing and Environment, Publishers Weekly, Mindful, Writer's Digest, and elsewhere. She was awarded a Massachusetts Cultural Council grant for a collection of essays she's writing about becoming a neighborhood naturalist. I can't wait to read those. She serves as a mentor with Creature Conserve, an organization that connects artists, writers, and scientists working on conservation issues. You can visit her online at Diana Wren Books.
Thank you for the warm welcome and the nice introduction. I appreciate it. I love the theme of this because I write so much these days about things that are crawling or flying or slithering into my backyard. And even though I actually wrote this essay during the height of the pandemic, and apologies for taking us back to that time in some ways, I'm still there. I'm still in my backyard. I'm still observing all of the things and inspired by that. So this is in a way, a happy takeaway from those dark, strange times is that I have become so much more tuned to things in the land around my house. And there's a lot there. So, and also thank you to the bookstore for making space for literary journals. And this is such a beautiful bound anthology. I'm reading from my proof pages from my printer today, which are nice and big. But I was just reminded of how when I started writing, I would go to the bookstore and make a beeline for the shelf of literary journals because it was bigger than it is these days, right? They were less online, they were not online, and there was an actual shelf, usually several shelves, and they were gleaming beautiful copies, just like what we're seeing here today. And they were really always inspiring to me, and I would always find some money for them. So I hope people purchase these and enjoy them and savor them and pass them along. So I'm going to just start from the beginning and read for about 7 minutes and try to drop you off at a suspenseful moment. It's a pretty long essay and it takes a few twists and turns. So this is called Fledged. The handoff took place at noon inside our dim garage. Our neighbors, tense and talking fast, were in a hurry to get out of town. They thrust the case of supplies at me, a syringe, a rubber heating pad, a bag of dog kibble, a container of crumbled hard-boiled egg, and moist kibble. And then to my son Gabe, they handed over the stainless steel bowl containing the baby bird. It sat in a tangle of dried sphagnum moss commonly used for orchid growing, which is one of our neighbors' more conventional hobbies. It lifted its black head and blinked sleepily as the family, talking over one another, rattled off instructions for caring for the wild bird they'd rescued. Feed the bird every 90 minutes, sun up to sundown, but not overnight. Remove poop from the nest by hand. The bird defecates as soon as it eats. Mash the dog kibble and egg very small. Place bits into the gaping beak until the bird starts chirping. Tweezers or a syringe could work. Otherwise, fingers would do. No water, though. The bird could drown. I stared warily at our new house guest. A few days ago, it had been almost covered in white downy fluff and much smaller. It had looked helpless in its makeshift nest. Now, with more dark mottled feathers sprouted and a white tufted mohawk, it looked less like a fuzzy alien and more like an actual bird. What kind of bird? None of us knew. What I did know was that caring for this bird for a week would be harder than we thought. The bird had not had a great start in the world. It had fallen 20 feet from a nest on a floodlight outside our neighbor's house. They went up a ladder and replaced the bird. It tumbled out again the next day. Assuming it was injured or rejected or both, the neighbor's teenage daughter had brought it inside their house, safe from predators. She'd been hand-feeding it diligently, her dad pitching in as needed. But then their family had the opportunity for a beach house rental on Cape Cod, a rare treat in a pandemic summer. That's why they thought that the next best people to take over on short notice, my animal-loving son and me, to supervise. Besides, we were already babysitting their chickens in their absence. So what's the long-term plan? I faltered while my son made cooing noises at the bird. I was reading online, you can't keep a wild bird in your house without a license. Maybe this should go to a wildlife rehabber. My neighbors agreed. They had tried to find one, but it turns out wildlife rehabbers are a bit like unicorns, especially approaching the 4th of July weekend, especially during a pandemic when lots of places are closed. Even in normal times, there are not many rehabbers listed on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife website who will take in songbirds. Most of those listed have specialties like raptors or bats. Almost all rehabbers are at capacity and only take in clearly injured birds. This bird looked pretty vigorous, shifting around in the moss. The slight upturn of its beak seemed like a smirk. Do you think it might want to fly soon? I asked. Well, if it does, you can just build it a little outdoor structure for it to move around in, my neighbor suggested, with some wood and mesh. I blinked. Sure. Let me just gather some wood and mesh and build something in between the hourly feedings from sunup to sundown. No problem. I'll just stay tethered to your bird all week. You guys go have fun at the beach. Gushing thank yous, backing hurriedly out of our driveway, the neighbors headed off for vacation. Their car zoomed away. Gabe and I brought the bird and supplies upstairs to the guest room. I closed the door firmly to keep out the cat. How had I let myself get strong-armed into this complicated caregiving situation? Why did people always think that just because I worked from home, even before COVID, I was endlessly available to look after their plants, their chickens, their children, their dogs, their wild birds that have fallen from the nest? Gabe set up a card table in a dim corner. Grown birds flitted in the treetop outside, freely making their way to and from our feeders. Our little guest cocked its head. I closed the window and lowered the shade so it wouldn't be jealous. The bird closed first one eye and then the other, settling in for a nap. As I watched Gabe fuss with the bird's guest accommodations, I marveled at his lengthening limbs, the new angles in his face. He had reached the edge of adolescence, having recently turned 13, and suddenly seemed so capable as he plugged in the heating pad and placed the bird bowl on top. He arranged the food and feeding supplies, including tweezers and toothpicks if the syringe didn't work. Maybe this was a good project for him. COVID canceled his normal summer plans. Maybe it was a good project for me too. Saving one small thing after so much loss in the world had a distinct appeal. We watched the bird breathe. My breath caught in my throat. Suddenly, this creature seemed so very fragile. Our caregiving efforts could fail, or nature could take its course and the bird would die on our watch. I didn't think I could handle one more sad outcome. Tears burned, but I blinked them away. Don't bond with the bird, I instructed myself. We have to get it into more capable hands. Speaking softly while the bird snoozed, I showed Gabe the Massachusetts Department of Wildlife website. Rehabbing birds is a delicate thing, I explained. We are not trained. And this website says not to feed baby birds or bring them into your house. Our neighbors meant well, but this is like kidnapping. It's against the law. His eyes widened. Will we be arrested? Well, probably not, I admitted. It was hard to picture U.S. Fish and Wildlife agents showing up at our door. Still, I like to think of myself as a law-abiding citizen. Gabe nodded, taking this in. We should keep trying to find a rehabber, he said. I mean, I want to keep it, but I know we should do whatever is best for the bird. I hugged him. Great, I will keep calling around. We didn't have time to discuss it further. The bird gaped its yellow beak and chirped urgently. Oh my God, it's hungry, get the food, I cried, helplessly waving my hands around. Gabe calmly took tiny crumbles of moistened dog food and egg and dropped them into the yellow beak. The bird ate several drops of food, then wiggled and pooped. Gabe unflinchingly scooped the poop out and threw it away. He tenderly fluffed the moss around the bird. The bird closed its eyes and went back to sleep. The soft breeze from the air conditioning stirred its feathers and down. My son's chest puffed a little. See, this is easy. 10 feedings a day until we can turn it over to a rehabber, I reminded him. I might not be able to get anyone until Monday. That's 2 whole days away. That's 20 feedings. Mom, I can do this. Okay, I said. I bit my lip. But I still think we need advice or help sooner. And suddenly I knew just whom to call. And that is the suspenseful moment I will leave you with. Thank you.
I'm just going to jump on stage again to say thank you to Diana. Our second reader is Dorothy Nelson, who is a poet. She's going to be reading Kingwood, West Virginia. And Dorothy, I'll just take a moment to read your bio, if that's okay. Hold on, let me pull it up here. Okay. So, Dorothy Nelson's poems have appeared in Carrying the Branch, Poets in Search of Peace, Paulus 4, Human Architecture 6, Consequence Magazine, Atelier, Cafe Review, Sojourner, and elsewhere. Her collection, The Dream of the Sea, was published in 2008. She leads a veterans writing group in Gloucester, Mass., and served as editor of The Inner Voice and The Outer World, writings by veterans and their families from the Cape Ann Veterans Writing Workshop. And I'll give Dorothy the floor. Please welcome Dorothy.
Thanks for coming. It's a great crowd. Let's see, where we dwell. I picked Kingwood, West Virginia, where I was fortunate to get some work trying to help coal miners, get their black lung compensation. And I was there for a number of months with my 2 sons when they were young. They're here tonight. And happy to see you all here. It was a turning point in my life to be in that part of the country in 1974. Kingwood, West Virginia. I almost died in West Virginia, not from the cold or heat. In winter, there's dead trees to burn. In summer, the Cheat River. Perhaps I would have died laughing or crying or dancing or falling off a tractor while making a sharp turn up a hill. I almost died of heartbreak for all the losses, cave-ins, explosions, black lung, murders, mine wars, drugs, medical malpractice, or no practice at all. From bulldozers on mountains, from unregulated logging, from inequity, or from heartbreak, leaving behind road trips, the rally in Harlem, court battles, the beer garden, picnics, mountains, and woodlands, and the people. I bow my head to a gravestone. Know how much it takes to save a loved one's life, to stretch it out far beyond what the docs thought was possible. Not to believe data, not to believe the diagnosis and prognosis, not to leave the bedside, that your loved ones should live no matter what, not to leave. To stand tall and straight with life in your hands, breathing, swearing you could keep standing like that, life in both hands. I wrap my arms around the gravestones, trees, remnants of history, in view of these mountains formed 480 million years ago that dare us to tear them down. This came good. That's the first time I read that poem. The second time will be easier, I think. So this poem is written for Kate Sisler, who took care of my sons wonderfully all day in West Virginia while I was in court and representing minors and going to meetings. And a quote from Kate, she wanted me to know right away, our enemy here is the power company. The house of Frank Evans, the titular head of the Black Lung chapter of Northern West Virginia, sits on the street, our trailer in his backyard. He's still handsome with black hair, gray streaks, crinkly eyes, wisecracking, coughs incessantly, spits black soot into a spittoon next to his chair, his claim for black lung denied. My young sons throw stones into the brook out back. I will drive from the trailer with my son sitting behind me down the country road by the Cheat River to drop them with Kate, who will watch them. Then return to the trailer to work at my desk and make calls. I will check miners' records in Preston County and beyond. The road opens to high plateaus and low green meadows beside the mountains. I wonder why more land is not farmed for vegetables. Frank's wife cooks buttered cabbage for supper. Smells good. Sometimes he has buckwheat pancakes. He has no teeth but eats, quote, gumming the food to death, unquote. Kate cooks everything grandson Chuck brings to her. Tomatoes, cubes, peaches, green beans for canning. There's no basement in this small house on the slope of a large hill across from the swiftly moving Cheat River. Chuck brings sealed glass jars down to Vonda's house to store in the cool cellar on shelves. William and Mary farm in Kingwood. It's tough, William said, working the mines and keeping the farm. He worked third shift for years, driving an hour each way. Supper with Kate, Homer, Chuck, Rosie, Josh, Rafe, and anyone else who is hungry and stops to visit. Outside, a rooster, chickens, new eggs for Homer, kitchen sink with aloe, flowers on the windowsill. Platters of food on the table. Spaghetti from yesterday, white bread made from scratch, and homemade berry jam. Northern pink beans soaked and boiled, raw greens, sliced tomatoes, canned pickles, bowl of chicken wings, sometimes meat from local game like possum. Our enemy here is the power company, Kate tells us. She raised 16 children here. 4 were her own. For lunch, she serves cooked brains to Homer on warm bread. Water from the spigot boiled on the stove to wash dishes. Water boiled to rinse them. We dry the dishes and put them in the cabinet where dishware is stowed, including styrofoam cups behind glass doors. After supper, we will drive back to the trailer, a mother and 2 small boys, through the dark, where the stars and moon come and go between the steeples. I think that's it, right? Okay.
Thank you, Dorothy. That was beautiful. And it's wonderful that your 2 sons are here too. It's really special.
Next, I want to introduce Amy Glenn, who is, I have to say, just a doll to work with. She's an amazing writer. She's an amazing editor. I've learned she's an amazing bike rider too. But let me read her bio. She's going to read her essay for us. Amy Glenn, she, her, is a queer writer, public health researcher, and editor at the literary magazine Pangyris. She writes a monthly newsletter called Outtakes, using personal experiences as a springboard to explore larger themes of identity, belonging, and community. She holds a BA in English literature and has attended various writing programs, including Aspen Summer Words and Pioneer Valley Writers Workshop year-long manuscript program. She is currently at work revising her first novel. Amy Glenn.
Awesome, thank you. So I'm going to read a short essay where we dwell. When I was younger, I dwelled in a lot of various living situations. So this is a unique living situation I found myself in, which ended up teaching me a lot. So it's called Plans. I don't like to plan, but I want to have a plan. I want that feeling of security before heading into a situation. A to-do list in my pocket, reminders scratched on Post-it notes, a Google Calendar mapping out my day. Inevitably, the plan will fall apart, along with the false sense of security that comes next, that what comes next can be controlled. But that doesn't stop me from wanting one. The plan was to move to DC for a summer internship to be closer to my then girlfriend. We were still in the too soon to live with each other, yet see each other every night stage. So I jumped on Craigslist to search for housing leads. I researched furnished apartments within walking distance of downtown. Calls were made, landlords were contacted, until I found a place that was overpriced with a 4-month minimum commitment. At the last minute, I got word that my girlfriend's friend of a friend was subletting their place. It was a bit further away, but in a quirkier neighborhood called Mount Pleasant with gay roommates. No commitments, no forms to sign. So instead of asking more questions, I said, let me know when I can move in. That's how I ended up living in a nudist gay commune over a sticky DC summer. The place was owned by 2 older men who called each other Mr. and slept in their second-floor bedroom with the door wide open. They kept compost and yogurt containers in the kitchen, which attracted black flies and exuded a strong smell. I once opened the oven in search of some pans, the logical place to store things, when I discovered a hard green substance inside. The oven hadn't been turned on since it arrived 2 months before. Pizza? I thought as I grabbed some old newspapers to throw it away. I lived with the Misters, 2 other men, and a woman who was my roommate for about a week before she moved out into a nicer, read clothing required apartment downtown. As plans go, my girlfriend ended up moving back home due to a health scare, just as I was moving into this unfamiliar place with no AC. But it was too late to find another apartment, so I stayed. My roommates and I made a habit of lying on the basement floor after dinner to stay cool. We would spread out with as much bare skin as possible, touching the cool ceramic tiles, breathing in the dusty air. We shared one bathroom among the 5 of us. It was one of those European-style wet baths where everything in the bathroom can and did get wet. The shower head was directly over the toilet, and a plant hung from the ceiling that would brush against my shoulders. I had to remember to close the toilet lid and leave the TP outside each time I showered. Otherwise, if I forgot, I was left standing in a puddle of pee water with soaked TP. There was a small sink on one side and a drain in the middle of the floor. The bathroom was on the 2nd floor, and whenever the shower was turned on, a pipe leaked by the kitchen. It sounded like summer rain. I had a tiny room in the attic on the 3rd floor. It was hot up there. I felt like I was sleeping next to the sun. I had 3 fans that blew in my face, kicking up debris that stuck to my white shirt like a swarm of gnats. In the mornings, the Misters would make me a coffee with latte art in the shape of intricate geometric designs. I wouldn't dare drink it until I'd put it in the fridge to cool. I'm not sure my body could ingest any more heat without boiling over. I got in the habit of sucking on frozen peas throughout the day. leaving a trail of water drops wherever I went. When the other female roommate moved out, I was jealous at first. She had gone back to a planned, meticulous life with clean counters, cool air, and clothes. When she invited me to her new place for a housewarming party, I jumped at the chance. I put on a stringy dress and arrived with my 7-layered vegan dip and a bag of chips in tow. We sat on oversized couches with beautiful displays of cheese and olives spread out on an expensive-looking board. Someone opened the bag of chips I brought and dumped them into a wooden bowl. They served wine in actual glasses, handed out cloth napkins, and ate with metal silverware. They spoke in the DC chatter I despised, asking what I did for work, which school I went to, how many letters were after my name. After about an hour, I realized I was the only one eating my dip. I admit it may have been hard to distinguish the 7 distinct layers that melted on my walk over. They were all there. Guacamole, refried beans, salsa, cashew cheese, nutritional yeast, lettuce, and peppers. But it was food all the same. As I packed up my things to head out, someone handed me my plastic cup of dip. I got goosebumps on my arm when our hands touched. The place was too cold for me anyway. I returned to the feverish apartment of exposed skin. My roommates were lying on the couch, so I joined them and offered them some dip. They ate it by the spoonful and told me about their day. They were unkempt and hairy, with red bumps and soft spots. I became familiar with A's birthmark on his behind, how our skin was like chicory root, slippery and rough. The way C seemed to have a line of hair from the tip of his head down to between his butt cheeks, as if someone had drawn it with a pencil. Their bare asses left sweat marks on the kitchen chairs in the shape of elephant ears. They walked around as if they had never known what it was like to be covered, and taught me what a self could be like unclothed.
I told you she was good. It's fun to laugh too. Thank you, Amy. Next we have David Blair, another poet, and he's going to be reading For Lucy and Dr. Scholl's Sandals, which I always wanted and I wasn't allowed. I am going to read your bio, David. Let me just find it here. David Blair is the author of 5 books of poetry and a collection of essays. His latest book, True Figures, Selected Short Poems and Prose Poems, 1998 to 2021, is available from Mad Hat Press. He teaches poetry in the MFA writing program at the University of New Hampshire and lives in Somerville, Massachusetts with his wife and daughter. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. I discovered the Mystic Lakes during COVID, actually. For some reason, I'd never, even though I lived in Medford and Somerville, I didn't even know they were there. And I was just taking a walk, and I was like, what's over here? I was like, oh, I'm going to bring my kayak. I'm going to read 2 poems, actually. And if Cheryl's online, hi, Cheryl. The poetry editor of Pangyrics, wonderful poet. This is a poem that was in Pangyrics, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It's in my second book. Allegheny Cemetery Day in Winter. I grew up, both of these poems are set in Pittsburgh, where I grew up. Allegheny Cemetery Day in Winter. Windows above the doors, as I remember it, at the Board of Health, tuberculosis skin test station nearby built when even waterworks were pretty in a way. Green copper visors over red brick blackened in time, and the feeling of file cabinets full of sputum and vials of venereal samples, slices of human lung prepared for slides as if the biology room had mated with raccoons. Or I got that idea from the entry to the Allegheny Cemetery, home of the bones of Stephen Foster and bones attached to place names and streets, Whiteman and Negley and Rankin, where a friend was the son of a Russian priest, and the swells planting contiguous with roughened up places Bloomfield, Friendship, Lawrenceville, and carved Union cloaks draped over tombstones, and the incinerated remains of the armory workers who exploded, and Josh Gibson with his bat, my own bat, I dreamed of after walking there in the cold. It was mad because I sliced its belly with a potato peeler and bonked it with the potato grater as it flew at me in the kitchen, making latkes or maybe gnocchi. Bat dreams, maybe they're good. Just an early, threadbare Pittsburgh boiled down to abstract streets with its Scotch-Irish aristocrats, still somehow Presbyterian with their Gothic fonts and conspicuous paucities. The vistas of sunsets and lagoons were lit up, and all the stained glass mausoleums turned on by sundown. The irrationality we bring ourselves, or in it comes with clouds from the lakes. The next day, we all felt a bit fevered and ill. That dream, that was a scary dream about the bat attacking me that night, right? And then my daughter was she like woke up and she was sick. So it was like, I just took that, I just used that sequence. So I grew up in the neighborhood Squirrel Hill, and I wrote this, I think after the Tree of Life thing, which was down the block from where I grew up. And it's an elegy really for the great poet Lucy Brock-Broido, who went to my high school. For Lucy in Dr. Scholl's sandals, maybe Lucy never went back home much because there was less Pittsburgh left. Let it go all at once rather than suffer the many pieces not in her books of going. 3 movie theaters gone, the one big screen and the last one divvied into 5 green stamps, the lawn of the high school she hated blown out, the Doric columns obscured by the crown of the new gym, the old delicatessens replaced by new ones, the used books and used records and new books and new records vanished. The pieces to the Torah chutes and ladders vanished. The ice skating rink of St. Edmund's Academy gone. The JCC remodeled with a clock tower, Big Benjamin, Big Ben Yehuda, then obscured by the building that went up where one of 3 corner gas stations became medical offices and retail spaces. The streetcars that rattled by her childhood in the 60s stopped, and finally the worn penny smooth trolley tracks ripped out and replaced by less bumpy roadbed for buses that pirated streetcar numbers, and vague hopes of a busway connector, changes to the inner eye, changes to the inner nose. I could have looked up and thought, hey, weird, pretty teenager, go where I go with great big hair, buying cigarettes while I buy milk duds. I am but 5, but in love with ladies my sister's age because I look up to them, swinging on knee-length braids down practically to red Dr. Scholl's sandals, but never did as far as I know, but possibly so, from the pharmacy lady harumphing in her octagonal pink glasses and red, white, and blue striped pharmacy cashier coats, calmly advancing through Gerald Ford, and the old blind guy sold unsharpened pencils from a cup from the bank steps, and a constellation of nickels and dimes across the afternoon paper with the 3rd inning scores at the newsstand managed by a clean-cut man with a turtleneck, a corduroy blazer, and a tall afro, and small change into the fireman's boot spangled with small red helmets, St. Lucy, St. Francis, St. Christopher, St. John the Evangelist, St. Gertrude, St. Earth. The weird painted postcard look settles in with mist and green light in the forest primeval of the Appalachian Public Park, named for one major skinflint or rich crook or another. So I will keep things light and misty as possible rather than squatting in the sulfur of the river deeper than I can think, with night barges bending, foreshortening spotlights gone walking in dank fog. I maybe get saved a while in the noosphere while other people and a run of good luck that won't matter at all, and the paper towels and the flies and the cheese and the grapes and the home kitchen to keep things going in the great indoor art of knowing strangers. Thank you so much.
So I think Ginny,
It's gonna read?
Okay. Yeah, so,
Is that okay?
yeah.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry.
come on up, come on up.
No, go ahead, you're in, you're not.
Yeah,
I'm
so
sorry.
our final reader wasn't able to come tonight, C.B. Anderson. She wrote a story that Ginny, our fiction editor.
Actually, I'm gonna do something different.
Oh, well, you
I have a
take the
cool
stage.
Oh,
plan.
okay.
All right.
I have a
all
cool
of you.
plan.
So Ginny's
Hi.
a fiction editor, and
Yes, I'm Virginia
Hello.
Pye. Hello. I write under the name Virginia, not Ginny. So if you're ever looking me up, that's how you'd find me.
And has a new book coming out.
And I have a new book coming out in October, a new novel, a fourth book that's a historical novel set here in Boston and Cambridge in 1899. It's called The Literary Undoing of Victoria Swan. Keep your eye out for it. So C.B. Anderson was going to read her story, which is a fantastic story. And then we thought maybe I'd read her story. But as I look through this collection, I just want to share with you the thrill of what it's like to be an editor when you come upon stories that capture you right away, and in particular, capture you by place. And that's what this collection is about, is where we dwell. And each of these stories is so strong in right from the start, putting you into a unique place. And so I want to whet your appetite and encourage you to buy the collection and read on in these stories. But I think you'll notice that each one of them has just got this terrific sense of location that draws us in. I also really need to mention that we have one of our wonderful Pandrivis fiction readers here, Judy Kessler. Yay, Judy. So Judy reads our stories with us. And we also have a published Pandrivis author, Josh Shapiro here, whose forthcoming story is going to appear in our next collection, which will be a fiction-only collection. And we will hopefully do an event for that in September, and hopefully Josh will read at that. So it's a really terrific community, and I hope you all, if you write, that you'll send us stories. And when you read this collection, gravitate towards the fiction because it's really terrific. We love it. And of course, the poetry's great. And of course, the essays are great. Okay, so I'm just going to read you a little bit from 4 different pieces. And I'm just doing it in the order they happen to appear in the collection. Jaguar by Beto Carapederia. Bocas del Toro, Panama, 1931. In the house where Mama got sick, we 5 children, all under the age of 12, waited for our fathers. Mama was a troupe singer and dancer head wrap and dancer feet, dancer fingers and dancer gaze. Now she'd faced death at the age of 41. I was 9, and in that year, some woman from the town came and put her in a home where people with tuberculosis went. They told us not to visit, but that didn't stop me and my little sister, Chichi, my big brother, Elicio, and my 2 little brothers, Natali and Franklin. Every day, we walked the 10 blocks and peeked in the doorway at the room filled with sick people. watched as Mama laid in a bed near the door and listened to her struggle to breathe. Sounded like a whir in the wind. When we called, she'd sit up and stare blankly at our skirts, trying to figure out if it was really us or the ghost of someone that had passed. Then she lifted her eyes to look at our pigtails and the boy's matted hair. When we got closer, she'd kiss us, tell us to go home and that she'd be there soon. Oh, don't you want to read the rest? Of course you do. Very compelling start and a very beautiful, sad story, I must say. Okay. We'll save, okay, I'll read CB's right now. All right, we're going for contrast here, you'll note. Man in sky in daytime, C.B. Anderson. We are surrounded by curtains, a quote from René Magritte, 1929. 1. We had just returned from Paris, where things did not go well. There was the spider, yes, but the end came at a party when the host confronted Magritte's wife about her cross. The host was a painter too, with a larger and more vocal following than Magritte. Georgette had gotten the cross for her 12th birthday. The host suggested she remove it. The cross was small, 18 karat, smooth from 20 years of wear. Magritte knew it as well as he knew the shade of Georgette's nipples and the twin moles on her back. He was not a religious man, but he was steadfast. He got up and she got up and they left the table. 3 days later, they boarded the train for Belgium. 2. The spider. Early in their stay, they'd gone for aperitifs with artists Magritte had met. The atmosphere felt both unrestrained and postured, and he wondered, not for the first time, whether so many outward gestures came at the expense of inner calm. He was in Paris to paint and to sell his work, and if Belgian, Walloon accent embarrassed him, it did so only mildly. His mind was shifting through this when the man beside him reached into a pocket, pulled out a box, and placed a spider in his mouth. Chewed, swallowed. The expression on Georgette's face didn't change. She simply pushed her cure to the center of the table and left it there. Things had not gone well in Paris and still weren't good. It was July 1930. At first, Magritte had felt relieved to be home. The plain, uncrowded streets, their apartment, summer warmth. It had rained almost every day in Paris. Georgette unpacked their belongings. She set about restocking the larder. Magritte sat at his easel in a corner of the dining room, the dog at his feet. He was having trouble painting. Each day he told Georgette about it, and each day she listened. I mean, just imagine our thrill at getting a story like that. And it's very well researched, really impeccably done. Time for me to mention that I'm not the only fiction editor at Pangyris. I am co-fiction editors with the esteemed novelist and writer Anne Bernays, who is not here tonight, but is an extraordinary literary figure, and I feel honored to work beside her and make these decisions with her. Okay, here's a rather different story. Playing Chicken by Scott Gould. I'm a home health nurse for Williamsburg County. My present occupation has not caused me to be shot at, molested, or otherwise screwed with because I'm 6 feet 4 inches tall and weigh 265 pounds and have an attitude that repels ridicule like the backside of a magnet. The last time someone attempted humor in regard to me being a male nurse, I broke his nose. Then I said it for him. I'm a nurse because it required very little money and effort to get into tech school classes when I took leave of Parish Island, a garden spot where I lost both of my big toenails and 16 pounds when I learned to be a war machine. This is all to say that between then and now, I have put many a mile on my Plymouth Valiant, negotiating the swampy two ruts of this county, where people have more concern for the lotto numbers than their health. I have calculated the blood pressure of people who exist 2 ticks from a heart attack. I have listened to the sloshing lungs of those who smell like the insides of an ashtray. And I have wedged medicine spoons between the brown teeth of children who squirm like eels on hot sand. Through it all, I have come to believe that the human body is nothing more than a private trash heap, that some of us fill to capacity faster than others. So a Southern story with a great voice. Okay, and one last one. The Nagana Solution by Spencer Harrington. The Army helicopter lands in a clearing about 300 meters from the clinic, its rotors slowing to a halt. 3 men emerge from its hatch looking as if they've landed on Mars, wearing hazmat suits and with surgical masks and clear plastic visors protecting their faces. They hop out and look around warily. Took the bastards a week to get here, mutters Kosongo. We're standing at the clinic's entrance, and as its director, he summoned the men to survey our patients, who now number more than 200. The men step carefully to avoid the numerous puddles blocking their path to the clinic. It's September and still the rainy season in our part of the Congo. One of them, a white man, sees Konsongo and waves. Who are they, I ask. Dr. Albert Konsongo drags hard on his cigarette. He's 50, a short, wiry man with frown lines I've watched deepen in the weeks since the first pierogies showed up. No, can't be pierogies. I don't know how you pronounce this word. Pirogues? Pirogues? It must be a carrying thing. Showed up with dying people.
Boat.
Do you know what it means?
Yeah, it's a boat.
It's a boat.
Carved out boat,
I
right?
know it's not a pierogi, okay? Just to clarify. I'm really good at this job of being editor, so I got that part. Okay, let me start this paragraph again. Dr. Albert Konsongo drags hard on his cigarette. He's 50, a short, wiry man with frown lines I've watched deepen in the weeks since the first pierogies showed up with dying people. They've come at us from both directions along the Congo, east from Lasala and west from Bumba, horrible ships of fools coughing bloody mucus. The Mondolais white man is Varnes from World Health, he explains. Behind him is Professor Ngoy from the École de Saint Public, and following him is that idiot Banza from the Ministry of Health. The men approach us, then stop, standing outside the clinic at a distance. Konsongo and I put on masks, but we've mostly given up wearing them, except around patients, to stay in costume. So I just want to share, those are 4 stories that are each so vastly different, and it just gives you a sense of the richness of voice and place in fiction that is just so delightful to get to take part in and share, and I hope you all will pick up a copy.
Thank you.
Okay, so man, thank you to all our readers. You could tell from numerous aspects of this, from the bios to some of the words that we edit but don't know how to pronounce. There's the part of the real joy of editing is that sense when things show up, you're invited into a world you didn't know until you started reading. And that's also a joy that you can share as readers and listeners. And so thank all of you again for reading. What I'd love to do is ask if there are any questions. And I think Kayla, actually, who we should acknowledge too in the back, is our new print production manager. And this book came together with her immense help. And I think you're monitoring other
Yes, I
questions.
am monitoring the chat.
Okay.
I don't have any questions just yet. Just a lot of people happen to be here.
Okay, we tried to elude them, but they found us anyway. So if you have questions for us at Pangiris or for the authors, I just want to pause here for a moment to potentially answer them or evade them, as the case may be.
Well, I'll ask a question of this nice lady whose name I forgot. I'm sorry. You read about the West Virginia experience in the mining.
Dorothy.
Dorothy?
Yes, thank you.
Well, I mean, it was very powerful stuff. And I guess my question is, how often is a subject like that treated in either poetry or fiction, the life of miners? I know D.H. Lawrence wrote about such people from the coal regions of England, but here in America, I'm not sure. Perhaps John O'Hara from southern Pennsylvania and the coal regions there.
I do have a shelf of books at home if you want to come over. Yeah, I've been collecting just poets, of course, from West Virginia.
Yeah.
When I go there, I buy local writers, and
Is it okay? Is it okay if I turn the camera this direction so people can see? Okay.
so
Yeah.
I think you're asking, in general, about working class writing. I mean, is that what, or is
Just
it
treatments of this,
the coal in
really
particular?
amazing, stressful, dangerous
Mhm.
profession.
And it's Appalachia overall, right? So that we've always known, and how that part of our country was totally ignored, and people were allowed to. They kept other industries out. I mean, it's a long story. So that the coal operators were in cahoots with the government, so that the people were captive to whatever jobs they could find. And I mean, that's when the unions came in and became very active.
I'm so sorry. It was just.
Actually, I think the unions around coal were pretty important to American labor history, organizing people for health and safety issues and stuff like that. That's a big story.
Yeah.
I happen to know that there's a Appalachian literary magazine called Pine Mountain Sand and Gravel.
Pine Mountain Sands and
Pine
Gravel.
Mountain Sand and Gravel.
Wow.
What did I get in here? What's the name of the?
Pine Mountain Sand and Gravel, I believe is the name of the magazine. It's edited by a woman named Paula Hansel, who I think lives in Cincinnati, which is sort of an Appalachian town.
Right.
Yeah.
Region of the country too.
Wonderful. Let me add to this just as a general point. Two things. One is and maybe this is so obvious, you all know it, but whenever you go to a region of this country and probably the world, but definitely in the U.S., everywhere I've gone, there are communities like ours of editors, writers putting out literary magazines.
Mm-hmm.
They're sometimes hard to find. Right? We tend not to have a huge budget for publicity, but you if you start looking for them, you find them, and you find writers who are capturing things that you wouldn't otherwise get a chance to know about. And it's actually a wonderful way to get to know any region of the country, is look into its literary history, because you start to be reminded of figures you've forgotten and learn about people who are incredibly talented but never quite passed through the I don't know what to call it, but the funnel or the gate or the exclusionary grounds of New York and LA, and so there's all this richness in this country.
It's so important that you mention that, because it seems as if I've heard over the years some bias against regional writers, and I think that's been the word that sometimes, because obviously many people aren't well known, but they're still doing great stuff.
Right, and as if, a particular neighborhood in New York, it's not a region, right? And you have to go read about that. So yes, regional writers very important, and also, it's funny. I've lived a lot of places in the world. I've traveled, and I'm about to spend the fall in Iceland. The entire population of the country of Iceland is about 365,000 to 380,000 at the moment. The Boston area could furnish two countries of Iceland, and there's a rich and thriving literary culture in Iceland. Nobel Prize winners that I highly recommend. Independent People. It's kind of the Iceland's Grapes of Wrath, and so this many people can support incredibly rich production and consumption of literature and all kinds of things. So we forget that, I think, because our country is so big. We forget that the effect of all that bigness in some ways is to drown out lots of things that are wonderful. So keep looking. And then the other thing I'll say is I think this is from Wallace Stegner. I feel nervous saying that on live stream because my ignorance will be perpetually there if I'm wrong. But I believe it was Wallace Stegner who wrote about the fact that writers in America don't tend to write enough about work.
About what?
About work.
Work. Yeah.
That we are in some ways maybe so grateful to be around university or doing white collar jobs that we as writers forget to look and to write about and or there's class things where people who populate all of the arts sometimes are there because they didn't have to work, right? And they could invest in other things. And then we forget, right, that this creates a bubble, and things that look outside the bubble are so important. And so, yeah, thank you, Dorothy, for writing this poem.
Oh, thank you for that. And I was thinking, I'd pass this on. Probably everybody knows this, but when you go into bookstores in different parts of the country, there's usually a section for local authors, but you have to look for it, you know. And I really wish that, you know, they made more of a big deal about that, you know, wherever you're going in West Virginia, I mean, Missouri.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
It's really important to support local writers and read their books.
Okay, well, actually, on that note, this is a short Q&A, but I feel like that's you know, finding local artists, supporting, right, buying their books, eating wine and cheese. Again, sorry on the live stream. These sorts of things and mingling and creating community are what we're here for. So thanks so much for coming out tonight to this launch reading. Thank you for hosting us to this wonderful bookstore. And please explore. And Eliza in the back is one of our interns. She will show you copies of the most recent two, and then they're also available at the counter. So, thank you.
Yeah, we have 2 copies right here, and if any of you are interested in looking at them, they should be in the front.
Okay. Great. I'm just going to kibitz with our live streamers for just a second in the back. Hi. So thank you guys for coming to the live stream. Sorry again about the mix-up with the URLs. We had technical difficulties with the first one. Thanks for finding us. And as you can see, it was a big crowd. It was a lively crowd that came in person. This is actually our first live event, I realize, post-pandemic. We've sort of been slow to get going again. We used to have a regular series with the ART, the American Repertory Theater, held Resistance Mic and readings all the time, and hopefully this gets us launched again. So thanks again for being here, and I'll hopefully be in touch with you to the extent I can through email, and again, you're really a valued part of our readership, and yeah, just really glad you guys persevered to make it here. Thank you. And I will also figure out how to end the live stream. Okay, here we go.